Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Loreweek. I'm your host, forgot to take his aspirin. Yeah, it's gonna be a long one, guys. Buckle up. I'm sorry that I complained about having no news last week, because you're probably thinking, Lore, why are you so blah? Well, I got to bed around 2 last night. And again, you're thinking, why? Because that's how long it took me to watch all the conferences. Yeah. See, I was actually in the middle of the PC Gamer conference, and then I found out that there was also a Guerilla Collective conference right before that I didn't even hear about. I was just like, oh. Okay. I guess I'll watch that, too. So yeah, we're going to be talking, the majority, the overwhelming majority. Oh, whoops, I actually forgot to add the Guerilla conference. Let's actually do it in a different order. Let's do this. This. There we go. Anyways, as I was saying. Yeah, I was in the middle of the PC Gaming Conference. I was like, oh, the Guerrilla one. Oh, okay. Yeah, I was up pretty late. I have notes. Some of it's going to be pretty bullet pointy. But, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm told Joseph Kukin actually came back for Remastered, because they were refilming shots or something. I mean, I don't know. I haven't bought CNC Remastered yet, so it's not on the list. Before we get into that stuff, so like I said, that's the majority of the topics today. Do I have pictures? Nope. So, before I get into the topics today, I want to talk first and foremost about the show. So, for those of you not aware, we're still going through Persona 5. We'll be for a while more. I would really like to finish by the end of the week. That may not be on the table, because it's an extremely long game with extremely large amount of padding. Now, in addendum to that, just for those of you who care, as of Tuesday, it will have surpassed the longest run we've ever done that isn't a lore run. We're actually going to... I've debated looking up lore runs and seeing where it will sit on that list. Because, yikes. Like, I imagine, you know, the FF lore run, the proper remake lore run will surpass it. And I'm pretty sure the WoW lore run would surpass it. But I think that might be it. I think those are the only two that are actually going to be longer than the Persona 5 run. Have I read War of the Worlds? Yes? I'm so confused by that question. You're fine, Lord Harriman. And speaking of which, I want to give a nice public apology for losing my temper yesterday. I lost my temper yesterday. And that's never fun. I hate it when that happens. And I try very, very hard not to let that happen. And I apologize, especially to Nerozaz, who I specifically yelled at for no reason. I had no reason to do it. So I am sorry, Nerozaz, and I'm sorry to the rest of you who saw that. Anyways, so we're still pushing through that. I have no idea how long it's going to take. Right now, when we conclude Persona 5 is going to determine what we do next. So, for those of you who haven't heard me say this 50 times, the Tor run, where we're playing through as the Sith Warrior, will be starting on the 29th. Period. If Persona 5 runs long, tough. If it runs short, then we will be playing... I'll try to squeeze in another game in between Persona 5 and Tor. Which game that is depends on when we finish Persona 5. This is exactly why I don't have codified schedules up, because that's nonsense. I can't perfectly predict how long a game will take. We literally spent an hour and 50 minutes yesterday on one boss. Anyways, so that's where we're at with that. I do want to mention one other thing with regards to the FF9 theater. For those of you curious about that, I got the last of Bragwin's lines in, along with several other things, actually, including Takoida's. And that means that as of this exact point in time, we have Iffinbutt, who is awesome. I mean, he is an amazing person. Hang on just a second. Thank you very, very much, Iffinbutt. Very much appreciate. I've put that towards Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. Lost my train of thought. FF9 Theater. All we're missing right now is main characters. So I need Reximus's lines. I need Galtori's lines. I've been in contact with both of them. I need Ruth's lines. I haven't heard from her in a while, so I'm not sure what's going on there. I need Hat's lines. He's been giving lines pretty regularly, so I'm not worried about that. And I need Ryokami's lines. And randoms. There we go. I know I was missing one person, but that's it. That's where we're at. Of course, you know, those are all major characters, and obviously that's a large amount of work, but that is officially where we're at. We're at the point where all I'm waiting on is the main characters to finish their lines and toss them in. So, woo! As I feel like I've mentioned before, I've reached the point where I can no longer do any work on the theater. I have capped off. There's nothing else I'm capable of doing, unless I just start voicing characters myself. And nobody wants to hear me do Kuina. How far along are they? Variable. Depends on the person. Like I said, Hat's almost done. He's very close to being done, so then that'll be Amaranth done. Galtori is close to a third done. Ryokami is nowhere near done. Rax is nowhere near done. Ruth is nowhere near done. And Random is nowhere near done. So, depending on how long it takes for those people to get me lines, will determine exactly how long it takes for the theater to come out. For those of you who haven't heard, we've already decided once we're good, the theater will be coming out weekly, one chapter a week, on Saturdays specifically. And I'll be releasing those manually when we get there. So that'll be awesome, and I'm actually really looking forward to other people seeing the finished product. I've kind of been seeing the finished product, obviously, but I have been more or less deliberately on the main channel. I haven't decided yet on that part. I'll debate it. But I've obviously been seeing most of the finished product to date, and that means I kind of already have an idea how the theater's going to look and how it's going to sound and how it's going to function. But most of my actors actually don't know what they and their scenes sound like in action. So I'm actually pretty curious. Stop calling it the main channel. Please stop doing that. It's not the main channel. It's the YouTube channel. I'm actually really curious what they're going to think of their own portrayal of their own lines and how, you know, they sound in the scenes and blah, blah, blah. So that'll be awesome. Anyways. Words. So let's talk about random news very, very briefly. I'm not even going to update the current topic because I only have one bit of random news. Tomorrow, we will have the lame channel. I like that. Tomorrow, we will have the news about Star Wars Squadrons. Probably a game. I know I hate to say that in such a strange way, but it looks like it's a video game. I'm not even 100% on that, so just don't quote me. We'll see. That's tomorrow. We're also getting some other news over the coming week. And hang on, let me get some dates here because I'm not sure which is what. Give me 1 second, please. I do. I have a YouTube channel, and then I have the VOD channel. But I am not a YouTuber, and I do not want anyone to think that, because that is wrong. So, this is June. Alright, so what is today? Today's the 14th, so it looks like on the 16th, we have a Steam thing. So what is that? That's Tuesday. On Thursday, we have the EA thing. And it looks like that's it for the coming week. So we've got something from EA tomorrow regarding Star Wars. Whatever Steam is doing on Tuesday, and whatever the rest of EA's thing is on Thursday. And then we will be covering that next week, obviously, in the same format we're going to be doing today. That's it for random news. So, which one are we doing first here? I've been separating myself from YouTube for 6 years now, Magister. So, yes, I am not a YouTuber. I'm not. I am a streamer who happens to have a YouTube channel. So let's cover the Guerilla conference first, because I imagine most of you weren't even aware of the fact that it was a thing. This is mostly indie stuff. Anybody who wants... Normally I like to have links here, and, release links. I don't, because there's an absolutely ridiculously insane amount of stuff here. The 22nd isn't going to be in the next week, though, next time. So, the 23rd is also not next week. So, if you want YouTube, you can look this stuff up on YouTube. You can just look up the actual VODs of the conferences. But like I said, I'm not putting it up back here, and I'm not, I'm not going to link to individual things. So, Uragun is the first game they showcased, and it's a deep, you're the last, you're the super weapon, but it's the last of your people. And they kept talking up the story element of it. But then they actually showcased the gameplay, which is good. Not every game was actually showcasing a gameplay here. Hello, RJ Dim. RJ Dim? Welcome to the stream. You caught me at a weird time. We're covering some of the game news that's happened over the last week. But shout-outs, don't be a stranger. If you have anything you want to say or chat or tell me how terrible I am, please feel free to. I hear it every day. Uragun. It's a bullet hell. It's a top-down bullet hell. You got the strafing, you got the turning and the moving. It's your typical top-down bullet hell Smash TV type game, right? Could be good. We've actually had some really good indie games of that variety lately, so hopefully that'll be awesome. Otherwise, I don't actually have much to say about it. Almighty Kill Your Gods was a game that caught my attention. Almighty: Kill Your Gods. And the way this game works is, imagine a cross between Monster Hunter and Dungeon Defenders. So hear me out. So you go out and you fight big old monsters and you bring them back and you get resources and rewards out of that. You use that to help build up your town. Repair, defend, build, And you have to defend against waves of enemies that'll be coming as well. Or you could just leave the town to its own devices and repair it after they're destroyed. And then you go after very large enemies, very large monsters. Those will be the gods in question that you go and then kill. Actually, I gotta be honest, it looks pretty cool. It's the kind of game that probably won't sink its teeth into me, but looks like it's at least interesting in its concept. Oh, also there's a jetpack. So, that's always a +2 factor to a game, is when you have a jetpack. Roki, which I know I'm pronouncing wrong, is a pacifist puzzle fantasy game with heavily stylized graphics, which, about 90% of the games on this list have heavily stylized graphics, so whatever. It's apparently been inspired by Scandinavian folklore, which is why I know I'm pronouncing it wrong. But you walk around, it's one of those games where you go and you're like, oh, what do I do here? And you move this thing and you shuffle this over here and you pick this up and you interact with this. But the other... ROKI is this particular one. The gimmick, the main gimmick about this one is the fact that you have the ability to interact with the past and view the past in order to solve the puzzle of the present. Whether that's actually interesting or not is going to depend entirely on the specific puzzle design, but it's at least an interesting gimmick. Speaking of gimmicks, Genesis Noir, that's Genesis Noir, is a game about exploring the birth of the universe and also human society, which is done in extremely stylized black and white stencil-looking art. And honestly, I gotta be real, I actually watched that presentation twice. I have no idea what it's about. I can't actually figure out what the specific gameplay is on that one, so... Moving on. And then there's a Juggler's Tale. Now, this one actually looked kind of cool. So, it's a side-scroller platformer, okay? Here's the gimmick. It's actually got two gimmicks. One is it has the Bastion-style narrator who is explaining what's happening on the screen. Okay. The other gimmick is the character's on strings. So, you know, here's the character, and you're on the strings like a puppet thing. And the interesting thing about that is that those strings still have collision. So, for example, that's going to be part of the level design, basically, is trying to work around the fact that you are on strings, and you can't, like, for example, if there's a platform here, you can't go under it because the strings are just going to run into the platform. It also means you can be yanked up by the strings, which is basically your jump, and it's a tiny little gimmick. It looks like it might actually be interesting, but again, as always, will depend on the execution. Lake is a game. Yeah, a lot of these are going to be cool, interesting premise, but we'll see at the execution. Anyways, Lake is a game where you play a mail person. And you drive around delivering mail to people, and it's a visual novel. You pick options, you pick choices, but it's a visual novel with an actual branching narrative, like visual novels should have, and in so doing, you can change how exactly the story goes, and what path it takes, and what endings you get, and blah, blah, blah. But it's unlike most of the things, because there's a whole lot of, it's normal, but with a magical twist games. This is completely mundane. You are just a mail person in a town, on a lake, delivering mail. Surgeon Simulator, actually, Surgeon Simulator 2 was announced, but we're not there yet. Urban Trial Tricky. Now, this looks good. How many of you are aware of the Trials series? I suppose I'll raise my hand on that one. For those of you not, Trials series is kind of a 2D. You're on a motorbike, and there's a course, and you're doing tricks. No, Trials. I'm saying it right. I double-checked my reading. It is Trials. It's actually some fun games. Some legitimately fun games. And Trials, not Trails. Trials. Yeah, and don't hit the ground with your head. Anyway, so this near as I can tell, and I actually looked into this, this is not actually made by the same developers, but it effectively is the same type of gameplay. It's just more cartoony and more focused on you having this little buggy instead of an actual motorbike. And the courses are designed to be more cartoony. It looks pretty fun, actually. It's coming out on the Switch. It's called Urban Trial Tricky. And I don't actually have anything else to say about it. But again, it does look pretty good. And I'm actually probably going to pick that one up myself. Then we have Boyfriend Dungeon. Now, actually, I've actually talked about this one before. There's a few of these that are re-announcements. This is an attempt to cross-genre, to have two genres in one game. And those can succeed. Actually, ironically, I am most reminded of Persona 5, because there's the dungeon crawling aspect, and then there's the dating sim aspect, and both are equally a part of the game. So you go into the dungeon and you fight monsters and you get weapons, and then you leave the dungeon and then you date your weapons. Thank you very, very much, Slime Time. Very much appreciate and obliged. Thank you. If you know where you want to put that one for increasing priority, please let me know. Yeah, so you don't actually... It's okay, it's okay. Your weapons turn into people. Of various genders, and you can date them. You don't have to date them, but you can. And you can hang out with them. Dealer's choice, you got it. Thank you again. No, the weapons transform. The one where they showed off was this very handsome man. Anyways, point being, that's how that works. It's a roguelike, though, so the dungeon design is actually pretty randomized, which, Speaking of roguelikes, let's talk about Cold Canyon, which is a very heavily pixelized roguelike, which is about you being an old West guy going through Cold Canyon and shooting the ever-living crap out of everything. Now, the funny thing is, there's actually quite a few roguelikes that I'm going to be talking about here. There's the Slime Time roguelike, and then there's the other 4 Slime Time roguelikes. And what it is there's like a giant blob of slime but it can turn into whatever. So, like, depending on which time you're going through the specific dungeon, the slime may be a giant axe, or it may be a Formula One car, or maybe a Star Destroyer, or it may be a person, or it may be a flower. Like, you don't know. That's why it's called a roguelike. That's the variability there. Anyways, this one doesn't have any really gimmicks going for it other than the pixelized graphics, which, you know, that's always popular, and the fact that it plays very, very quickly. In fact, the game I was most reminded of when I was watching it was Miami something. I wrote it down. Hotline Miami. Hotline Miami. Because the pace of gameplay was very much on those lines. I don't know if you respawn that quickly, but you know what? Whatever. Thank you very, very much again, Slime Time. Very much appreciate your support. Thank you. Ow. 15, I think. Yep. Yeah, Half Minute Hero isn't a bad comparison either. Do you know where you want those subs to go sometime? Moving on, we have Out Buddies DX. This is another one I don't have much to say about. It's a sprite-based Metroidvania centered around old gods. You're jumping around and, oh my god, the Ancient Ones and Cthulhu! And that's about all I've got. Now, this is actually interesting that I have so little to say about this, because this one's actually out now. It just came out yesterday. So this is one of those announced, and also it's released situations, which is not the last time we'll be mentioning that today. Then we have Baldur's Gate 3, which actually had a very... Thank you again, Slime Time. A very brief showcasing. We only really got two things. First of all, it still absolutely looks like Divinity Original Sin 3, which I'm totally down for. And second of all, it's entering early access in August, probably. We're not actually 100% on that. You think we're oversaturated with Metroidvanias? No! A few months back, we did the last decade in review, Tigzar. And while we were doing so, people had trouble even thinking of Metroidvanias because they're that rare. Still. Like, we came up with like 12 in a decade. So, no. West of Dead was another game that was coming out. This is a top-down... Oh my god, people. This is a top-down shoot-'em-up with comic book-style graphics, narrated by Ron Perlman with cover mechanics. Now, West of Dead... So, there's two big gimmicks here for West of Dead. First of all is Silence J23. Thank you very, very much for the sub. Very much appreciated as always. The first gimmick is it's narrated by Ron Perlman. I'm not even joking. That's one of the big selling points. The second gimmick, though, is that you are fighting in Purgatory, and apparently something's going wrong in Purgatory, and you are running around trying to fix it. So you're dead, and everyone else is dead, and you're trying to resolve that situation. Not 100% sure how, considering how much shooting there is involved, but whatever. Oh yeah, it's also got a Western vibe. There's a lot of Western games this run, too. He is a good narrator, I will agree with that. Which leads me to Ultra Kill. I have a weird feeling... I'm going to move the thing over here. I'm just twisting my neck a little bit. I have a weird feeling that a lot of people are going to get into Ultra Kill. So, Ultra Kill is... They're trying to say that it's Doom. Near as I can tell, though, it actually plays a lot more like Quake. Quake 2, if I had to be specific. But they are very, very, very much going for the Doom aesthetic. And when I say Doom, I mean the original Doom. You know, that's the style and approach they're going with. Lots of enemies, same general level design, same general graphical style, same general interface approach, blah, 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 blah. It is very much trying to be, the style of the old Dooms, with heavily pixelated big graphics and blah, 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 blah. The plot, such as it is that hell is full, and that's a problem because people are still dying. But it's okay, because blood can be used as fuel. Anyways. And actually, that's it for the Guerilla Collective, so we're done with that one. Yeah, by the way, Guerilla Collective has a day 2 and a day 3 Obviously, I will not be covering either of those because they haven't happened yet. Gloomwood. What the hell is Gloomwood? So, PC gaming show. This was a 3-hour movie filled with people who were trying very, very hard to be funny. Ugh. Moving on. Valheim. Now, Valheim is a procedurally generated Viking survival game. Yeah, so near as I can tell, there's nothing that makes this game unique whatsoever, other than the fact that it's got the Viking paint on it. Moving on. Like, I don't mean to sound dismissive. We've got a lot of survival games we'll be covering as well, because of course the survival games. But yeah, it looks like a bog standard survival game, except for the fact that it's, you know, it's got Viking stuff. When I say Viking stuff, I mean like Norse is actually a more accurate way to put that. It's got monsters and trolls and all sorts of stuff like that. Then we have Ooblets. Now, Takoida would hate Ooblets, and I hate to call him out specifically, but it is extremely rare that I look at a game that has so much bloom and so much light pastel color choice that it's physically hard to look at. But that's where I was at with Ooblets. Yikes. It looks like a Animal Crossing style game, and I say that specifically as opposed to, say, a Stardew Valley type game, because there is a difference between those two genres. But yeah, it's very much Animal Crossing. You've except for the fact that you've got the Ooblets, which are these little monsters which run around and hang out with you, and there's different types of them. And that's the gimmick. That's what varies it up from Animal Crossing. Thank you very, very much for 3 years of support, Shadow Machine. As ever and as always, sir. Thank you. I'll put that towards Smash. Give me just a moment. There we go. Then we have Torchlight 3. Now, it sells well, Tuxedo Brun. I actually liked Torchlight 2 for what it was, but I will say this. I never replayed Torchlight 2. I actually played all the way through it. And I'm going to give you my extremely brief review of Torchlight 2 really quick. Torchlight 2 was really interesting, fun, and engaging right up until the story stopped, which was not when the game stopped. It was one of the most stark examples of this I've ever seen, because when I say the story stopped, I am not speaking hyperbolically. Like, there's this big epic quest, and then it gets to the point where it's like, we need to go kill the enemy villain, and then there's like 2 more dungeons, and then the final dungeon, during which there's no cutscenes, no story progression, no nothing whatsoever, and then you fight the final boss, and then the game ends. The story literally just stopped. Anyways, so yeah, Torchlight 3 looks a whole lot like Torchlight 2. Like, a lot. In fact, I'm not actually sure what's differentiating it from Torchlight 2 at the moment. Other than classes, obviously. So the story of Torchlight 3 is that it's set about a century after Torchlight 2, which sucks. So for those of you not aware, Torchlight 1 leads directly into Torchlight 2. But near as I can tell, Torchlight 3 doesn't actually have any direct connection to Torchlight 2. Torchlight 3 is in early access right now. Just opened, again, yesterday. And, looking at my notes here, they've got the forts system, which sounds like a stupid gimmick. They've got, they're trying to be varied up with their classes, like there's a guy who can summon trains. No, I'm not making that up. And the big story element is that the Empire from the second game is basically decrepit and falling apart, and that's about all we know story-wise. Nothing really exciting there. Elite Dangerous Odyssey. Now, this is funny, because not only was this showcased, but then they had Sinister Wing show up. And Sinister Wing wouldn't stop talking. Like, you could tell the guy had no idea what he was saying, because he just kept repeating the same point. in different words. What I mean by that is I wanted to know what the actual gameplay of Elite Dangerous Odyssey will be, and I can't tell you because no one else would tell me. Instead, what we have is it's going to be on the ground, and it's Elite Dangerous, but it's on the ground, and it's like on the ground, but Elite Dangerous, on the ground, Elite Dangerous ground, Elite Dangerous ground. That's about all I've got to tell you, because that's all they would tell me. So thanks for that, Sinister Wing, for constantly telling me it's on the ground. Anyways, that's coming out next year. Persona 4 Golden's on Steam as of yesterday. I actually don't have anything to say about that, but woo, good. To my knowledge, that's also the first thing that they've shoved onto the PC. So maybe that's a trend. We'll see. It's like 20 bucks. I actually already bought it because I have a feeling you guys will be making me play that at some point. So I just went ahead and plunked it. Well, it's very simple, Javin, because it'll be on the ground, you see. I can explain again if I failed to. If I failed at my job here. Apparently, Catherine came out on PC. I didn't even know that. I didn't like Catherine. Thank you very, very much. Sinister Wing. To think about that for a second. I wanted to say Sunless Sea. I wanted to say thank you very much, Sunless Sea. I was like, oh yeah. But yeah, no, it actually does legitimately sound like a Star Citizen game. Yeah, and it actually feels like Atlas is testing the water with ports, which is, if you remember, it's the exact same thing Square did like 4 or 5 years ago at this point. So, woo. In sound mind. No, Magister. The list, as you may or may not have heard me say 700,000 times, is in lockdown, so no. In Sound Mind is a creepy horror game, which is a first-person platformer shooter, which has a demo available right now. I don't have anything else to say about it because it's a horror game. Moving on. Then there's this game, and this is interesting, because I wanted to know more about this game, and they told me to go to hell. And I was like, but I just want to know more about your game, and then they told me to talk to the hand. It was very unpleasant. It's all Sinister Wing's fault. But there's a game called Airborne Kingdom. Now, Airborne Kingdom looks very promising, but I know nothing about it. I couldn't even tell you what the gameplay is. It's about, like, because the game, they actually showed gameplay, but I couldn't tell you what it is, where there's flying airship cities, and there is a ground. There's cities on the ground, there's grids, there's farmland on the ground, what looks like territories. And you've got, you know, aircraft which look like old World War I era dogfighter craft. And that looks incredibly cool, and I don't know anything else about it. That's coming out in fall of this year. Dwarfheim is Warcraft 3 with Norse. Because everything's Norse. Thank you very, very much, Tuxedo Brian. Very much appreciate, sir. And thank you very, very much. It's Oliver Plus. Very much appreciate to both of you. Thank you. Dwarfheim. H-E-I-M. If either of you know where you want to put those subs, please let me know. Oliver Plus 12. There you go. Now here's the thing. When I was looking at Dwarfheim, I was like, okay, you know, it looks like it might be cool. It's got underground-based maps. It's got a demo out right now. A lot of these have demos out right now. It's an RTS, obviously Warcraft 3, like I said. It's constantly hammering the point in that it's a co-op game. Now that got me interested because you guys know I love a good co-op game. So I looked into it. It's actually a PvP game. PvP team, specifically. That's the co-op. You're on a team. The way it works is you and 2 other players, so a team of 3, each pick a class. Each class it's not like StarCraft. It's closer to Warcraft 2, where you get a couple of different abilities and a couple of different passive stuff and different spells based on the class you pick. And then you fight the other team. So pass Humankind, this is not a new announcement whatsoever, but Humankind is one of two big 4X games that are in development right now. And I'm not even sure why they were showcasing it until they got to the end of their showcase. And they're like, we're accepting more applications for developers. Because one of Humankind's big selling points is the fact that they have been involving the community on an extremely, at a large level, basically. You know, play testing and beta testing and alpha testing are constant, and they're taking feedback constant, blah, 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 blah. And they're being very open about interacting with their community. And that's their big shtick. So, moving on. Now, this is a funny one. So I'm actually going to tell you the big selling point of this game last. God damn it, Shadow Machine. Apparently I'm going to bow for like a minute first, so thank you very, very much, Shadow Machine. Thank you very, very, very much, Shadow Machine. Very much obliged. Very much thank you, sir. If you have to give me a moment to jot those down towards Pokemon Isles and the LEGO ISD. Yeah, that's actually what I'm thinking too, RJ Dim. I'm getting less interested in Humankind and more interested in the other one, which I don't remember what it's called. There's another 4X game that's in development right now. And I don't remember what it's called, so forgive me. It wasn't showcased. So, Icarus, okay? Now, the graphics look basically like Minecraft, but slightly more, stylized. But same general approach. The animations are pretty crap. The way it works is you're in a ship called Icarus, because of course they call the ship Icarus, and you do drops. And what it is you drop down to the planet, and you go and you either gather or gain or whatever. It's procedurally generated, of course. But you can select your drop zone, which has probabilities of having certain resources. You gather the resources, you run back, you go back up. One of the larger gameplay gimmicks is the fact that you have a finite amount of oxygen every time you drop. If you run out of oxygen, you die. So, I know, shocking development. So you have to manage your time while you're down there before you have enough time to get back to the drop pod and get back up to your ship. Now, one of the big points that they were trying to showcase with this game is they wanted it to feel like the first few hours of a survival game, but forever. Now, that sounds terrible to me. Like, I get the enjoyment. There is an enjoyment of the first few hours of a survival game when you have nothing and you need to, deal with things and you need to barely survive. That's fun. But part of the reason that's fun is because you have a goal, and that goal is getting out of that phase. Now, this is just my opinion, of course. But I like the point when you get out of that phase and get to the point where you actually start thriving, right? You go from the punch trees phase to the how do I set up my defenses on the Eastern Front phase. Now I'm going to tell you the big selling point. This is done by the guy behind DayZ. I don't even know his name. Didn't write his name down. Don't care. But they would not shut up about that. And they actually had an interview with the dude, too. And if you look up, like, every press release, every marketing thing is like, it's from the guy who did DayZ. And the graphics look so crap that I would believe that. It's not just bad graphics, because you guys know that graphics fidelity doesn't really matter all that much to me. Sorry, Sony. But animation quality is actually something I'm a lot bigger on. And the animation quality of what they showed was crap. Like the kind of stuff that I would expect a first-timer who is just getting used to an engine that he bought a license for and doesn't actually know how to work with yet kind of crap. So, pass. Now, this is actually a fun one. Of this list, this is the first game that I'm actually legitimately excited for. Evil Genius 2. Now, this was already announced, but they did showcase more actual gameplay this time. Unfortunately, I don't have anything to say about it because it's Evil Genius. It's exactly what you're expecting from an Evil Genius game. But yeah, Evil Genius 2 looks fun. It's still got the same general loop. You know, you build your base, you train your minions, you go out on missions, you advance your plots, you gain the attention of superheroes and spies. They try to stop you, you stop them, you kill them in various cartoony ways, you know, blah, 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 blah. It looks good fun. Hello, Nerazaz. Sorry again. I actually apologized early in the pod, but hello. And the one thing that they showcased which was new is layered base building, which, if I'm not mistaken, Evil Genius didn't have. What I mean by that is actual floors, like you've got multiple tiers to your base, which could be cool and could be incredibly frustrating depending on the interface, because that's going to be a live or breathe on the interface kind of a thing. Either way, I am actually kind of excited about that one, so here's hoping. Then we have Proteus. This is the other Doom game. No, seriously, it's Doom. It's Doom with the pixelation, and it's the exact same thing. Everything I said about the previous game, what was it, Ultra Kill? Just repeat that for this. Then that's Proteus. I'm going to spell that for anybody who's curious. Prodeus. Proteus. So if you want another classic Doom kind of thing, there it is. Speaking of classic game, that's a good way to put that. Thank you, Plutonia. It's a sprite games shaded with modern shader tech. It looks all right. You know, I don't have anything to say about it because I mean, it's going to depend on the level design, as any game like that is. The next, speaking of completely aping on older games, Fae Tactics. So this is a turn-based, grid-based strategy RPG. I admit it does look cool, but it looks like they're basically taking Final Fantasy Tactics and copying it a little bit too hard. Now, I wrote in my notes, they're clearly aping Final Fantasy Tactics. Like, when I say aping, I mean the same kind of slanted terrain, the same kind of pixelated art with the stylized, you know, art portrait thing, the stats and turn order and all that fun stuff. But the thing that really sold me is during the battle, the units are doing this. Now, here's the funny part. After I wrote that down, I was like, okay, and I was listening to the rest of the presentation, and then What's-His-Face came back on, Day 9 came back on, and was like, and here's a game just like Final Fantasy Tactics, and I was like, okay. Got it. So then we cover a game, I'm at least curious. I love a good turn-based, grid-based tactical RPG. But I've noticed over the years that I'm actually pickier with it than I thought I was. And I think it comes down to the execution of how exactly the core mechanic works and the, as Dakota likes to say, action economy works. We'll see. That brings me to Carto, as in cartographer. This looks like a fun little game, like a fun indie project, probably a one-day thing. Carto is... So the way it works is you're running around, you're exploring the land, and you've got chunks of map. And as you place down the map pieces, you rebuild the world. Kind of Dragon Quest 7-y in a way. So you're making the maps, and you have the map pieces, and you make the map. Like, if you ever played Carcassonne, it looks a lot, very, very similar to that. But the difference is there's a story element to it because how you make the map changes how the story goes. And that's also how you solve puzzles. Is it's like, okay, I need to have this road connected to this town, connected to this spot, you know, that kind of stuff. It looks like a fun little game, and I admit I'm actually interested in that one, so we'll see what they do with it. Then we have Project Wingman, which is Ace Combat, basically, without Ace Combat. You know, fighter jets, dogfighting. There is a campaign mode. There's a conquest mode, where you play with other players in order to conquer territory. That's about it. Good morning, Sierra Mike. Then we have Blanco's Block Party. So this is not Legos. It's not Legos. This is legally distinct from Legos. It's very important. But it's a game that, it's a party game. It looks like Mario Party, except more of a like third-person jumping, platforming kind of a thing. And also, it has a built-in level designer, and they're like, we really want you to make stuff. It's not Lego. Everspace 2. I don't remember if I ever played Everspace 1. I don't remember. I honestly don't remember. Now, here's the funny thing, though. I looked into this because, you know, it's a flight sim, and I love space flight sims. It has more surface-based stuff, more actual combat and interactions, just above, you know, in atmosphere, basically, rather than up in space. That's cool. Far more focus on fleets fighting each other. That's cool. I couldn't find any information. Granted, I was in a bit of a hurry last night because it's the middle of the night. But I couldn't find any information on whether or not there's an actual campaign or content or story of any kind, which, to my knowledge, Everspace 1 does not have any of. Same with Elite Dangerous, actually. So, moving on. Then we have... I don't think they pronounced this one, so I'm going to give it my best shot. Inculinati. It's Ink, Ulinati. Now, this looks like... This is a puzzle combat game, and it's all about positioning. The way it works is the gimmick is you're on a piece of paper and people are writing it down. But the core gimmick, the actual gameplay gimmick, is there's so many slots, right? There's so many spaces. And you shove people, and you move people, and you attack people, and you positioning, right? And each space has its own status effect, basically. Buffs or debuffs or fire or whatever. And so the goal is to shove the enemy either off, because you can literally shove them off the page and they die. Or you could shove them into fire or whatever. It actually does look kind of cool, legit. I thought that was a neat concept. Total War Saga Troy is a Total War game. All they showcased with Total War Saga Troy is that you can choose which interpretation of the Trojan horse you use. Which, okay. Did you know you can siege a town? Or you can sneak into a town. Or you can call down Poseidon and destroy the defenses of a town. Yeah, so I have nothing to say about that. Moving on. Remnant from the Ashes is a survival game. Because of course it is. And I shouldn't roll my eyes. But Remnant from the Ashes actually does sound kind of cool in concept. Hear me out for a second. So, we're humans. We got wrecked by extra-dimensional invaders. Okay? Now, we have figured out a way to infiltrate their evil dimensions. Go in there, and that's the survival element, is going in there, finding resources, gathering stuff, and trying to build your base in there. The way it was presented sounds a lot like, imagine Minecraft, except all of the actual stuff is in the Nether. And the Nether is a lot more dangerous. And actually, that sounds kind of cool. Because the whole point is you're supposed to build into the... You're supposed to build into the alien dimension and work out there and blah, blah, blah. It possibly came out already. I have no idea. I tried to write down release dates when they gave them to me, but again, I spent like 4 hours last night. 5 hours? God. I was up really late looking all this stuff up, okay? I didn't do 100%. What do you want from me? Mafia 1 Remake. They showcased a little bit of that. It looks a lot better than the original Mafia 1, but as always, I don't give a damn about graphics. What I do give a damn about is how good the game is, and I'm not sure if it actually qualifies as a remake. Now, they did make the distinction between remaster and remake, so that's possible. But given how bad the Mafia 2 remaster is, I'm not sure that's a good thing. We'll see. Is it that bad? So one of the biggest problems the Mafia 2 remaster had, I have to have past tense because they may have patched this out by now, is they didn't figure out how to code collision. So, you know, and you drive through the ground. Or maybe you drive through a building. Or maybe, you know, you end up just walking, you know, you're in the middle of a cutscene and an NPC drives through the building. They may patch it, I don't know. To my knowledge, they have not. We'll see. Anyways, Rogue Lords. So you play the devil, also known as EA, and no, there's worse than EA. It's fun to beat on EA, but they're kind of middle ground when it comes to evil corporations. But no, so you're playing. It's a turn-based roguelike. The art style and combat reminds me a lot of Darkest Dungeon. But the thing is, it's very it's very AP based, so action point. You have so many action points, and that determines how and what you do. Now, what's kind of neat about it is there's two gimmicks that flesh it out. It's a roguelike, first of all. The first gimmick is all of your people have HP. Duh, that's not the gimmick. The gimmick is when they run out of HP, the enemy can still attack them. And that damage will go to you. When your HP goes to 0, that's when a run ends. Okay. The other gimmick is that you have devil points, because you're the devil, and what you can do is interact with the interface directly to cheat. Like just changing the HP values, or changing, you know, moving people around, or changing the AP bar, or whatever. Just interacting directly with the interface. I don't know the full details, unfortunately, because they didn't show them all, but looks alright, I guess. Unexplored 2. Moving on. Seriously, I have no idea what Unexplored 2 is. I really don't. It's a roguelike, according to the press release. Moving on. So, then there's Among Trees. This is a survival game where you find, harvest, and build, but it's got really, you know, lighthearted, happy graphics. But no, it looks like Minecraft. Moving on. Now, I'm actually interested in this next game, even though I'm pretty sure I've already played it twice. Hear me out for a second. It's called Potionomics. Now, any of you ever play Racketeer? It's an older game, a few years ago, PC game. For those of you who haven't, are we on random? We are, okay. For those of you who haven't played Racketeer, you play a shopkeeper who is trying to make money. Duh. It's a shop game, which I actually tend to enjoy those. But there's also a dungeon crawling element to the game, where you go and you send people off to dungeon crawl. And you don't actually have to. You can just spend all your time in that part of the thing. It was pretty decent overall. Which is funny because several people who talked about Potionomics were like, this kind of game has never been done before, which is like, but... Also, there's a mobile game that did this, and I actually can't think of the name of it, but it was actually not bad. This is a couple years ago again. See you around, Tuxedo Brian. Me and my sister actually played it. Forgive me for not knowing the name. I don't remember the name, but it was a mobile game, and the whole point of the game is you are the shopkeep, they're the adventurers. The better you equip them, the better job they do in the dungeons, which means they have more gold to give you. That's the overall idea there. Now you might think, why are you bringing up a mobile game here? Because this looks a lot like a mobile game. Like, the overall style and presentation looked a lot like a mobile game. But, that being stated... No, it wasn't My Life as King. That being stated, actually, Potionomics looks pretty legit. I'm actually kind of interested in it. So the way it works is you actually make potions, duh, but it's an actual game. Like, you decide how much and what you use to fuel the fire. You decide how much and what goes in the thing, and how you mix it, and blah, 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 blah. And that determines what potions you get out of it. once you actually go to sell the potions, you know, you have to haggle with people, and you get these cards that you can play in order to try and increase your ability to, you know, haggle with the person and get a better price out of selling it to them, and yada, yada, yada. And of course, as with the game I just mentioned, you are selling to adventurers who are going to use these potions in dungeons, and thus, the better the potions are, the better success they will have in the dungeon, and thus, you know, will be able to bring you more riches and wealth if you like them. Yada, yada, yada. It does look cool. It looks legit. I'm actually kind of interested in it. But I do love a good economy simulator, so what the hell do I know? One moment, please. So, next we have... Listen, cards are amazing. I don't know what your problem is, John. Next we have Mortal Shell. Now, do you guys like Dark Souls? Because imagine Dark Souls, but without the leveling and without the equipment. Actually, this is not a new chair, but thank you, Magister. I really got sick of how the green screen effect would not be perfect. It always had little bits where the green screen wouldn't show, and I was sick of it, so I said screw it. Anyways, so imagine this. It's called Mortal Shell. And the way it works is it's Dark Souls, but the way you operate is you jump into people. And each person you jump into has set equipment and set skills and set stats. So imagine if you were playing Dark Souls, but the way you played is you could hop between other players' builds. And that's Mortal Shell. It's the simplest way I can explain that. Interesting concept. Now, there's not an infinite number of builds, obviously, because each build is supposed to be story relevant. Like each specific one each specific shell you can hop into has their own backstory, has their own, you know, presentation and idea and style and blah 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 blah. Anyone ever play Shadow Man? It's an old N64 game. Is it multiplayer? I have no idea. I never even heard of Shadow Man, but anyway, Shadow Man's getting a remaster, which I compared screenshots. It looks like they haven't even touched the graphics really. So, anyways, so that's the thing. What's this one? Yeah, the Voodoo guy, that's right. Yeah, it looks like a port. It looks like they're porting an N64 game to now that I've never even heard of. So I'm happy, you know, ports can be good. More ports can be good. I'm with it. Blightbound. Okay, so Blightbound is a pseudo 2D dungeon crawler. Now, at first I thought, well, this looks incredibly generic, because what this was you can play one of three classes. Hear me out for a second. You can play a fighter, a rogue, or a mage. Hear me out, though. It does actually get better. Because the way it works is it's 3-player co-op. And the way the game is designed is... Now, this is where the game might actually shine. The level design and boss design actually look pretty cool, because they're entirely designed around the co-op aspect. Enemy attacks require you to be in certain positions at the same time, or attack at the same time. Yeah, Trine, basically. Imagine Trine... except with more of a boss tint to it, and that's kind of the shtick they're going with. And I liked Trine, and I like the idea of, you know, designing both level and boss around the co-op, so cool. I'm actually kind of interested in that. Can you play it solo? That's a good question. I don't know. This leads us to Shadows of Doubt. This one's weird. So we have Minecraft stylized graphics. Okay, let's start with that. And it's a deduction game. What you're trying to do is you are a detective, and you're trying to figure out crimes. But the catch is, the main point is that you are stealth. It's all stealth-focused. You literally break into people's houses in order to, read their emails and siphon through their trash in order to figure out what's going on in order to deduce the crime. The main... damn it, Jamin. The main gimmick is the stealth. It's entirely stealth-focused, and I'm not sure... I mean, that could be cool? I don't know. Now, this isn't actually a new game, kind of. The next one is The Forgotten City. Now, how many of you have heard of that before I go any further? I'll rest my eyes for a second. A lot of people saying no. Oh, one person says yes. So The Forgotten City, for those of you not aware, is a Skyrim mod. You can actually find it right now. It's on the Nexus. And it's getting a full release. They're supposedly adding more to it. Basically, Enderall. They're pulling the Enderall. They're doing a full release of it with Bethesda's consent, yada, yada, yada. You still need to own Skyrim to play the game, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, that's that. It's getting its release as an independent game. It actually looks pretty legit. I might actually be down for doing a playthrough of that. The big shtick, the big gimmick of the game, is that there's multiple endings and multiple paths through it. Unlike Skyrim. So, cool. I'm with it. The premise of the story, in very brief, is that it's an ancient Roman city which has been locked in a time loop, and you're trying to figure out why and how to deal with that. Just very brief summary. Where are we at? So the next one is Paradise Killer. I don't know what to make of this one. So it's a first-person platformer investigation murder mystery. The way it works is you jump around and you platform and you explore and you get clues in order to figure out who the Moidera is. But when I say platformer, I want to stress I really do mean platformer. It's almost Mirror's Edge kind of style. So it's not like you move. It's not like a walking simulator. You have to jump and get on top of the building and go down the thing and jump off the walls to get that kind of thing. It's Mario. I don't know what to make of that one. So that's that. Next game we have is Wilking. Now, Wilking is a game in which two people who are lovers escape to a new planet, and there's two major gimmicks to it. By gimmicks, I mean there's one major gimmick and there's one thing that's bog standard. The gimmick is if they're united, they can actually heal the terrain, and that's one of the major goals, is trying to heal the terrain. Sorry, the actual name of the game is Haven. The other thing is it's a JRPG. It's a straight-up JRPG. You fight enemies, turn-based combat. If you've seen Dragon Quest, you've seen this. Thank you very, very much, Wilking, for being an awesome game. Very much appreciate. So yeah, it's a JRPG where you heal the land. Yada, yada, yada. It actually legit sounds kind of neat. Like, from what I saw, it sounds like it might be fun. So, cool. By the way, if you know where you want to put that sub, Wilking, please let me know. Then we have Cartel Tycoon. It's a Cartel Tycoon game. So, there's actually a demo of that one live right now, if you're interested in it. I have nothing to add to that. It's a tycoon game. You play as a drug lord. I will probably pass on that one. I'm not a fan of drug lords. I know. Weird. You got it, Wilking. So noted. What's next? Trash Sailors. This Looks like it would be a lot of fun for like a couple hours with a friend or three. And if you ever play Wings of Icarus, I imagine most of you haven't. I'll go ahead and just describe it. Wings of Icarus is a PvP game, which is you're on an airship and you're fighting other airships. Hello, Maverick Fryer. But the way it works is, when I say you're on an airship, I mean it's like a first-person game on an airship, and each of you you run around the ship doing stuff to run the ship. You are playing a sailor on the ship, not the ship itself. Make sense? So, same concept. You're on a ship, which is progressing through the stages, and each of you is running around on this ship trying to do stuff to fight off the enemies and repair things and go faster and defend and turn and blah, 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 right? It's also heavily stylized, graphically speaking, very Paper Mario style, which I actually can't stand. Not the Paper Mario thing. The actual graphics look terrible to me, but heavily stylized. It looks like, drawn, basically. And I guess that's it. That's actually all I got about that one. But I do like that concept. I've always liked the idea of playing a member of a crew rather than a ship itself, and unfortunately I have yet to find a game that actually does that in a way that I actually enjoy. Moving on. Cris Tales got a release date. This is not a new announcement. I actually played the demo of Cris Tales on camera. No, a good game, Mighty Mage. So Cris Tales, yeah, we actually demoed Cris Tales on camera. It looks really good. I've already pre-ordered it. It's coming out November 17th this year. I actually don't have anything new to add to that. It's just we finally have a release date, so that's awesome. Moving on. Alaloth Champions of the Four Kingdoms looks like a completely bog-standard Pillars of Eternity style isometric RPG, CRPG, which has nothing. They didn't showcase anything whatsoever as a selling point other than it's a CRPG and Chris Avellone helped write it. Now, I know that I don't want to sound dismissive, but in my experience, CRPGs are very, very easy to screw up. So, forgive me for being a little bit hesitant on that. But, yeah. That's it. That's the selling points. It's a CRPG. It looks straight out of Baldur's Gate 2. And it's got Avellone. By the way, he's not even the writer. He's just a contributing writer. We'll see. Next one is Weird West. So, it's the Wild West, but it's weird. And it's like Wasteland. If you ever played the Wasteland series, or the old Fallouts, top-down action points, not that I'm aware of RGDM, no. Top-down action points, blah, 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 blah. And the premise, from what I understand, story-wise, is that in the West, there are multiple factions. Like, there's a demonic faction and a monster faction and blah, blah, blah. And they're currently at war, completely segregate from you. And you are now entering into the Weird West, into the middle of the war, and you get to choose how you're going to deal with that. Actually sounds alright. Wasteland was a game I wanted to like, and I do like that type of game if it's done properly. And the premise sounds intriguing enough that I'm at least interested, I'm not jumping out of my chair, but you got my attention. Story of Seasons, Friends of Mineral Town. Now, actually, this is, I think, the third time I've brought this game up. But for those of you who haven't heard me say this before, this is Harvest Moon. Not to be confused with Harvest Moon. So, there's the series called Harvest Moon that lost the rights to its name. So, what happened is Harvest Moon branched into two separate franchises. The original developers and series turned into the Story of Seasons series, and the people who took the name started a new series which they called Harvest Moon. But Story of Seasons is the actual Harvest Moon franchise, if that makes any sense. Stardew Valley has nothing to do with either of these things. Although it is the best Harvest Moon game ever made. Anyways. Not a lot of information on the game that's new, except for the big one, which Javan already pointed out. It's on PC, which is interesting. Thank you very, very much, Ciela. I think that was Ciela. Double checking my notes. And not my notes. It was Ciela. Thank you very, very much, Ciela, for the sub. Very much appreciate. You know the usual question. Wah! Bloodborne, the Deafening. It's like the story of McDonald's. Kinda. New World. Now, I'm not even sure why they're showcasing New World here. For those of you not aware of this, Amazon has pushed out 2 video games. I actually have already talked about one of them, which is a bog standard Fortnite clone. Or at least I think it's Fortnite. I can't remember. It doesn't even matter, because the other one is a bog standard MMO clone. That's this one, New World. Now, if you remember me talking about the other game, which I don't even remember the name of because I don't care, that Amazon pushed out, the big reason I pointed out how stupid it was that they were doing that was because what they did, to continue the McDonald's parallel, is rather than trying to differentiate themselves to dig a foothold into the market, they decided to do the exact same thing the already successful people were and expect to make money off of it. This is what we call corporate stupidity. This is, in fact, a form of bullet point syndrome, actually. Because what they do is they see something that works and they just do the exact same thing, thinking that it will also work just as well. I mean, they're making money. Some people refer to this as design by committee. And yeah, we used to call these kind of games clones, too. You know, Doom clone, Command & Conquer clone. So yeah, there's this new MMO called New World. It's a fantasy MMO. And I actually did a little looking into it, and near as I can tell, there's nothing about it whatsoever that differentiates it in any way from any other bog standard MMO. This isn't even a full-on WoW clone. This actually feels like a game that came out, 8 years ago, from what I've seen. Moving on. This is ignoring the fact that MMOs as a concept have been on a massive downswing for the last, 5 years. Closer to 10, actually. Twin Mirror is a new Life is Strange game. Now, here's the thing. Near as I can tell, so it's the same developers and team as the Life is Strange series. But near as I can tell, this game has nothing to do with them. Which sounds weird to comment on that. But the reason I bring that up is because that automatically massively de-invests me in the game. I wasn't exactly a fan of Life is Strange, or the one we actually reviewed earlier this year or last year, whatever that was. But they have a narrative that they've developed, and a world, and setting, and rules. And, oh, here's another game that's unconnected to it. Okay. At least continue the story that you guys have started, but no. And it's, I mean, I'd tell you about the game, but I bet you could guess it right now. It's a point-and-click adventure style game with, dialogue options that don't really matter. And it's a normal, everyday town, but also there's a weird element to it. Yeah, no. Anyways. Moving on. Now here's a game that caught my attention by the premise, and then they showed the gameplay, and then the game immediately lost me. It's called Metal Hellsinger. Now, Metal Hellsinger is an FPS rhythm game. Now that's the premise that caught my attention, because I think branching rhythm games into other genres is a thing we could do. I've seen that several times, and I've seen it successfully. Necrodancer is a good example of that. Here's the thing. The only thing the rhythm does is gives you a boost. So, you've got a shotgun, right? But you still have ammo, and you can shoot off time, off tempo. And all shooting on tempo, on rhythm, does is give you a bit of a boost. And not even a large one from what I can see. So it's an FPS which has a thing in the middle of the screen that's irritating you constantly. There's even melee attacks you can do completely off tempo. So yeah, pass. What's the next one? Amulet of Chaos is the next one. I think this is the one that had Felicia Day. Do the boost stack? No. Amulet of Chaos is a turn-based Divinity Original Sin style RPG, which, okay, I'm automatically interested in it. And here's the catch. It is being presented as a humor game, parody game. Now, that always makes me a little hesitant, because a game that is designed to be a parody game, it can only really nail it or fail completely. Like West of Loathing is a good example of a parody game. And the bits they showed were not funny. But the game itself looks okay, so we'll see. Now, this one's a funny one. Red Sails. Now, hear me out for a second. Red Sails is you're on a ship in a desert. You're sailing through the desert. Now, I actually really like the idea of sand ships. It's a rare concept. I only see it periodically. I've actually introduced it in my own setting because I love the concept so much. So I was kind of on board. But when I say a ship, I mean you're a ship. Like you're a little dinghy, actually, like a rowboat. There's nothing that makes your ship capable of going through the sand whatsoever. Now, hear me out for a second. Because the premise starts to break down a little bit. Because even though you're in a desert, you're in the water. The way the game is presented and designed, 100% you're out on the sea. Rowing through the sea. You see someone that needs help, you know what you do? They're drowning. They can barely stay on top of the sand. So you throw out a rope to them and pull them, and you pull them out of the sand. I know I'm not describing this properly, but really, it's water. In every way, it is water. It just looks like sand. So that sucks. The premise of the game is you're sailing around the sea, looking for people to rescue as you try to figure out what happened to your people, because you lost the rest of your crew. And you navigate by the stars, which actually sounds like a cool concept, admittedly. The FF12 sand sea? No. Imagine sand that you can stand on. Because it's clearly not quicksand. Anyways, yeah, no, it's water. It's water. It's just they decided they wanted it to look different, but they didn't do anything to make it different whatsoever. Either way, pass. Which brings me to Surgeon Simulator 2. So, let me go ahead and start by saying that Surgeon Simulator 1 is not my thing at all. I know that meme games are a thing, like Untitled Goose Game. I don't know why meme games are a thing, but they are. I get that. And Surgeon Simulator 1 was a meme game. I would argue it wasn't a game. I would legitimately argue it does not qualify as a video game. Having said that, Surgeon Simulator 2 looks like they decided to make it a video game. So the core concept remains the same general idea. Okay, fine, Goat Simulator then, Joven. The core, I don't know why, the core concept is still the same, chunk, 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 chunk. But what they've done is they've added, basically they made it so rather than just being a hand, actually there's a full person being rendered now. And part of the joke is that everyone walks around like this. And you'll see people walking around during the day just doing this. Because, that's how... Pass. But at least they're trying to make it something more of a game. 2 games left for this one. The Last Campfire. So this is by the No Man's Sky team, which already is not a good thing. However, in total contrast to No Man's Sky, I mean, if we were to take No Man's Sky and do the exact opposite of it, we might have this game. So it's an indie adventure game which is designed to tug at the heartstrings. You know what I mean. It's the type of game where they design, they have this light kind of cartoony artwork, but there's also horrifying elements, and there's touching moments, and there's this music, and you get the point. And so that is the approach and style of the game. You play an Ember, aka someone who looks and acts absolutely nothing like a piece of fire, except for the fact that you have the ability to reignite people, which can either bring them back from the dead or, well, burn them. And you do so trying to find people and restore them and restore the last campfire, yada, yada, yada. I mean, it looks okay-ish. I don't want to sound dismissive. I just have absolutely no interest in it. Which brings me to the Outlast Trials, which looks incredibly boring. So the Outlast Trials is a message from my sister. What in the world? The cape! Exclamation mark. The legs are vestigial, period. Clearly, period. I agree that the No Man's Sky devs don't deserve the level of hate they get. But I do agree that they deserve some hate. I do fling poo at them. Just not as much as other people do. I was not overly impressed with No Man's Sky either time I played it. In fact, I will go ahead and quote myself here. When I went back and replayed No Man's Sky, it was actually a video game. I played it when it came out too, and it wasn't. So, kudos to them. The Outlast Trials is a game set during the Cold War, where we play as guinea pigs who are being tested for various methods of brainwashing and mind control. It is designed to be a cooperative survival horror game in which your team has to somehow manage to live. Now, when I say cooperative, I have to put an asterisk next to that, because they were really vague about the press release. And from what I've seen, it actually looks like it's more like team-based PvP. So, team-based PvP survival horror. I'm not sure what I think of that. But no thank you either way. Yeah, it looked incredibly boring. Zero interest. So, let's hit the Sony conference. This is the last one I got, guys. Now, before I get started, I want to go ahead and get the negativity out first. Okay, let's just get this out in the front. I really don't care about your goddamn hardware. That's not even true. But throughout the conference, there were two things that the Sony conference. There were two things that were irritating the ever-living piss out of me. The first thing was that almost every single time they cut to a person, that person would say, I should have written down some examples. Let me use carrots as an example. The carrots are oranger than they've ever been, and with the extra crisp factor that we've added to the carrots, now we can design carrot games we've never even been able to design before. And soon we'll be able to make mega carrot smoothies with the new carrot design carrot tops with extra carrots in them. And just, they would not shut up about buzzwording specific things that you could tell they were told to push. Like they wanted to push these specific buzzwords in terms of the hardware of the PS5. And they kept saying things which were ridiculous. Ray tracing! The SSD, the new controller. These things allowed me to make games that I could never make before. And all I'm doing is getting like, okay. Okay, now that we got that negativity out of the way, we got that done. Oh, wait, I forgot the other thing. The other thing is they kept showing the damn button corporate logo in between each things. I was actually watching this. Yes, exactly, Nero says. I was actually watching this at the exact same time while I was hanging out with Pax. And at one point, like 40 minutes in, I was like, hey, Pax. He's like, what? I was like, I'm watching the Sony conference. I wouldn't have known I was watching the Sony conference, but thankfully they reminded me of the fact that this is the Sony conference. This is the PlayStation 5 conference. Because they just keep showing the freaking stuff in between every single thing. It got funny after a while. Okay, now we're done with negativity. No, I'm lying. I got one more negative thing. I swear this is the last one. Okay? Maybe. So they opened with GTA 5. They opened the PlayStation 5 conference with GTA 5. And it wasn't a short showing. It was like the opening spiel. Now, there's, generally speaking, no kidding, RJ. There's, generally speaking, two mentalities when it comes to marketing for a conference. You start big or you end big, right? You either wow them right off the front, so they'll deal with whatever else you got, or you deal with whatever, and you just string them along, and then you end with a nice big thing. And that way, that's the thing they remember most, because it's the thing that was at the end of the conference, right? Right? So I can go ahead and tell you right now, they went with the end big rather than the start big, because GTA 5... Now, here's the funny part. I say GTA 5, I'm kind of lying. Kind of. Because it's actually GTA Online. They showed something like 3 or 4 specific clips of GTA 5. And then they showed about a minute of GTA Online. Spoilery cutscenes, too, actually. And so that was the big thing they were shoving. Because, yeah, you can actually get currency in GTA Online on the PS4 if you do whatever their thing they got going on right now. Oh, yeah, hands. They did the hands thing. Okay, now we're done with negative stuff, probably. Yeah, 1 million a month. Which is actually not a lot, by the way, if you know anything about GTAO. You know what that is? That's killing someone twice. Anyways. So, moving on from the stupid intro. We have the Spider-Man Miles Morales game. Now, we know basically nothing about this. So I don't really have anything to say about this, other than awesome, because that sounds awesome. It is a standalone mini game. You know, however you want to think of that. It is not the length of a full game, and it's not going to be. They've kind of pushed it out on the side, which makes sense since they're still working on Spider-Man 2. They've also they've done there's a few shots of things. I think they might have shown the Prowler. I'm not actually 100% sure on that one, but it looked kind of like the Prowler's stylings. I don't know. I don't know Morales' villains that well. It did look cool. I am interested, but I'm interested because I'm already interested in general, right? Like, I liked Spider-Man PS4 quite a bit. I actually would love to have a Miles Morales Spider-Man game. Here we are. Cool. Moving on. Like I said, they didn't showcase anything other than, hey, we're making this. Next game they showed is Gran Turismo 7. Now, I know none of my viewers care about this, but screw you. I actually had a lot of fun with Gran Turismo 4, which I think it was 4. It was the PS2 one. Gran Turismo 7... So, Gran Turismo 5, which was on the PS3, sucked, to put it as nicely as I possibly can. It had a couple of good elements, but it was nowhere near as well designed as the previous one. And they kind of moved away from a lot of really what made the Gran Turismo series enjoyable, in my opinion. Um, the new one, which is of course PS5, looks... So I'm gonna go a little more in depth into this one than I normally do. So the Gran Turismo series has always been in driving games. There's sim, right? Simulator. Then there's arcadey, and then there's bonkers. Okay, that's the range of driving games. You know, we've got Gran Turismo, we've got Need for Speed, and we've got Mario Kart. Just to put it simply, right? So, Gran Turismo is almost always way over here, way hard on the sim side of things. Now, I'm bringing this up because that's actually one of the things I like about the series. You know, it's one of the things I dig about it is you actually do have to pay attention to where you're going to do your weight distribution and how you've got your axle aligned and whether or not you're going to be able to handle this turn with the tires you currently have and yada, 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 yada. You get the idea. It's a simulator. It's a full tilt simulator, and there's a lot of things to keep track of, and there's a lot of awesome stuff that goes into that. And it's really not just about the driving, but about setting up the car. That's a really important aspect of it. This is one of the things that GTA or Gran Turismo 5 kind of dropped the ball on, is there wasn't as much actual designing and setting up of the car. The options there were substantially lacking. And the tracks were also kind of lacking too, but that's neither here nor there. They did have the Top Gear tracks. That was nice. Anyways, so I'm talking about all this. GT7, excuse me, I keep calling it GTA. It's GT7, Gran Turismo 7. Looks like it's going to be kind of more in the line of what I want, hopefully, but they didn't showcase as much as I'd like. We do know they're going to have championship races. There's going to be individual missions. There's going to be an online thing. There's going to be events. There's going to be a school, a brand central. Don't know what that is. Used cars, duh. A tuning area. That's the important one. A cafe. Scrapes. No idea what that is. Discover. No idea what that is. GT Sports. No idea what that is. And GT Auto. No idea what that is. Now here's the thing. They actually showed honest-to-God gameplay. And this is where I'm kind of like, So one of the things the GT series has had off and on is a series of racing assists. Now, this is good, by the way. These kind of things being a toggle is the kind of thing a simulator should have. Basically, you can turn on or off braking assist, on or off steering assist, and a bunch of other little things that basically shift the actual driving more towards the arcade and less towards the full sim. Here's the catch. The gameplay they showed was over here. I actually went over this, the footage we saw with a fine-tooth comb with my friend Gary, who was actually even more into cars and racing than I am. And we both agreed, independently of each other, that this was showcasing far more arcadey driving style. In fact, just by watching the footage, you could tell that they had pretty much all the assists on. Now, that's okay if those assists are a toggle. Right? Like, that's the whole point here. But I bring up all of this crap because this could be them trying to push more into the arcade market and less into the sim market. Or maybe they're just toggles and options that they decided to turn on for the footage. But the fact that they decided to show the footage, which is clearly full arcade series, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see where they go with it. I'm kind of hopeful. It'd be nice to have a really good racing sim again. Like, because right now, if I want to play a really good racing sim, I'm going to be playing a PS2 game. Pax actually had an idea, because he was in the call, too, while we were talking about this. What they probably should have done, and they never would have done, is they should have shown the same section of track twice. Once, bring in a player who is good enough to play with everything off. And then once, bring in a player who's more of a normal player and play with everything on. And just show them, side by side, show exactly how it feels to play on the two different things. That would have been awesome, and would have appealed to both markets at the same time. And it would only involved a little bit of additional things. So, I don't know. They didn't do that, whatever. Moving on. The next game they showcased... Well, no, it's not a gamer and a normie, because I'm I'm pretty sure at least 99% of my viewing audience right now could not do a good job of driving GT4 with all the assists off. Like, that's not an insult. It's just driving a racing game completely realistically simulated is hard as hell. There's so many things you have to keep track of that aren't done in almost all other racing games, right? I mean, yeah, you could do it slowly. You could be in last place, you know? That's not an insult. It's a different type of style of play. Thank you very much, Silver Black Eagle. Very much appreciate and obliged. Thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your support on Patreon. If you happen to know where you'd like to put that for increasing priority in a future stream, please let me know. You know, it's funny you say that, Mike Romano, given my real-life experience. I'm not sure I agree. But no, the point is that real-life cars are way easier to drive than racing cars, because you're usually not going, 90 miles per hour on the low end while you're driving to the grocery store and making turns that are actually designed mathematically to be hard to make. Like, I've actually looked a little bit into... I've actually looked into legitimate the physics and the math that goes into designing racing tracks, and it's some really fascinating, awesome stuff. the amount of thought and effort that goes into that kind of thing. No, I don't go 120 to the grocery store, believe it or not. That you know of. No, but anyways, I'm sorry. Point being, I am going to be following GT7 and seeing if maybe it's interesting, maybe it's decent. We'll see. We'll see. So let's just move on to the next game. I didn't mean to talk so much about Gran Turismo 7. You can always tell when I'm actually a geek about something. So, oh man, that would be terrible, Mike Romano. The next game is Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Just watching chat for a second if there's any response here whatsoever. So when I played Ratchet and Clank for the Rumination, I loved it. But then I played Ratchet and Clank for the Rumination, and I actually didn't care for it that much. So we'll see. Like, obviously, I'm not into the Ratchet and Clank series, not by design, just because I've never actually played them. I've never actually reviewed Ratchet and Clank, sadly. But I really, really liked the PS4 one. I thought it was extremely fun, and I dug the hell out of it, and I played it quite a bit, even regardless of the Rumination. So, whether this is a continuation of the PS4 one or the original series, I don't actually care, so long as it plays like the PS4 one, and it looks like it does, and it looks like it's a lot of fun. I have no idea where it lines story-wise. One of the... there's a couple of things that I noticed. First and most obviously, they only show this once. So they kept showing the dimension hopping, but the way they showed the dimension hopping was, I believe you, Max Time, was as a loading screen, which isn't interesting or engaging or anything whatsoever. However, one of the other things that they did was briefly, once, they actually showed how you could open a very brief dimensional portal just like behind an enemy and then jump behind him and then attack him there. Which seems like a cool mechanic, and I wish they'd showed more of that so I can understand more of how exactly that's going to work. Another thing they showcased was a lot of NPCs and people just kind of running around and talking during the level design, which is actually really awesome and potentially really, really cool. That's going to be some set-piecing stuff, but we have the potential for some Lindblom effect going on, which sounds awesome. They didn't show off a lot of the guns or anything like that for obvious reasons, but I am, at the very least, probably going to buy that game. So we'll see. I unfortunately don't have anything else to say about it, but, that's 2 games so far that I'm very likely to buy, and 1 that I'm potentially going to buy, so cool. Yeah, because they have an SSD Imperial Star Destroyer. It's this whole new concept. So now that we've gotten the good out of the way... Oh yeah, and they're ray tracing Clank because people care. The next thing they talked about was Project Athia, which is actually a temporary name. It's a new Square title. Which... Okay, so there's this group called Luminous Productions, right? Now, Luminous Productions was a studio, a sub-studio under Square that had Tabata at its head. And it was supposed to continue with the FF15 stuff, and they were going to work on something else. Then Tabata left the company entirely. And now that company, the sub-company, is producing this game. Sure, Javin, I believe you. I do. I don't like having that kind of thing shoved down my face, you know what I mean? So... There's only one other thing I have to say about Project Athia. It's exclusive to the PlayStation 5 and also PC. You know how companies like to reinvent terms in order to lie better? So they actually flat out said that Project Athia is a PlayStation 5 exclusive. They then later clarified that it is a console exclusive. What I mean by that is the only console it will be on is PS5. It's actually being developed for PC at the same time. But that's not what they're saying in the actual, you know, the marketing material that 90% of people see. The people who dig into it are like, oh yeah, it's on PC too. But everyone else sees exclusive PlayStation 5. Because it's totally a... Anyways. Next game is called Stray. Now, Stray looks alright, I guess. You play as a cat. There's no humans. You're in a slum. Everyone's robots. Comes out in 2021. I actually have nothing else to say about this game, because that's all they really showcased. Because they showcased gameplay, by which I mean no gameplay whatsoever. Moving on. Speaking of games that showcase basically no gameplay, the next game they showcased was Returnal, which wins the award for the dumbest named game in this particular conference. It's a game in which it is a Groundhog-style game, which is a third-person shooter and looks as generic as humanly possible. This is about the time I realized something. You guys remember when the PS2 came out? I do. You remember when the PS3 came out? Remember when the PS4 came out? Every single time, there's been a smattering of games that are tech demos. And this is about when I started to really notice that trend. Because... That would be funny, Nero says. Because several of these games are tech demos. They're generic style, games of a particular genre, which look processed to hell and back, and designed to showcase what the actual technology of the new console can do. This is... We had Bouncer back in the PS2. We had Folklore on the PS3. You get the idea. So, moving on, that's what Returnal looks like to me. It looks like a tech demo. It's a third-person shooter which has to do with a Groundhog Day loop in which you go through a planet and then you die. And then the planet is changing you, and it's this really, really generic trailer. I don't have anything else to say about it. Moving on. Next we have a Sackboy, A Big Adventure. Hear me out for a second. So I like Little Big Planet. Okay, let me start with that. Little Big Planet is 2D. Sackboy, A Big Adventure is 3D. And I'm putting this in quotes, lots and lots of quotes, because if you actually pay attention to the gameplay that they showcase, it looks like it's actually basically isometric. Like it's not actually 3D. You can move in a 3D plane, but the camera's stuck at a specific angle, and you're stuck going in like one direction, but except the camera's at an angle, so it looks like it's 3D. There were 2 or 3 sections which were 3D in the sense that it was top down and you can move around like this, but for the most part it looks like a Rails game. You're going in a linear direction. Now that's fine. I just had to comment on that because yeah, Super Mario 3D Land is a good example of what I'm talking about here. Nevertheless, it is a Sackboy game. It is Little Big Planet. It does look like it's going to be fun. It does have co-op, just like the other ones do, so that looks like it's going to be fun. I'll probably buy it. I'll probably play it with my sister, just like I always do. So I'm with it. It's just, I had to point that out. It's like, yay! I'm curious why they decided to abandon the Little Big Planet name, though. Moving on. Then we have Destruction All-Stars, which I think is actually probably the worst presentation of the entire conference for me. Now, I want you to imagine every stereotype you can think of a typical flashy, Hollywoody Fortnite player, right? Now imagine that you're playing as those people, except instead of playing Fortnite, they're playing the Destruction Derby game in a car. And that's the game. It's all about selfies and poses and getting style points and being all, yeah, and dancing while destroying people's cars. And it's a Destruction Derby game. Probably Devil May Cry 1, but I'd have to think about that, Mr. Red. Unless you count Super Mario Brothers 1. Or Super Mario World, actually, now that I think about it. I am going to stop talking about this game, because I have nothing else good to say about it. Next, we have Kenna Bridge of Spirits, which looks like a generic 3D platformer game, like a tech demo almost. It looks like your typical 3D platformer, jump around, interact, puzzle type things, but with magic, and also Pikmin, near as I can tell. This is purely a guess, of course, based on how they present it, but it looks a lot like because you got these little guys going around with you, and it's like, and you use them and help them to progress. It looks like Pikmin. It looks like Pikmin, except with more platforming. Okay. Next. Then we have Goodbye Volcano High. So, I'm going to read my notes on this game for you. So, it's a cartoon stylized game where everyone is dinosaur people set around a high school. Okay? And then, to read my notes directly, what's the game, though? Because not only did they not show an ounce of gameplay, they didn't even say what the game was. Like, is this a visual novel? Is this an adventure game? Is this a platformer, dating sim? I don't friggin' know. We're going to move on from that one. Next we have Oddworld Soulstorm. Now that one's interesting. So, I'm actually not a huge fan of the Oddworld series, although I did like the one I played for the show. Forgive me, I don't remember which one it was. It's where you play the stranger and... Help me out, which one was that? It was good, I liked it. But, so Oddworld Soulstorm. So we're getting a new Oddworld game. Stranger's Wrath, thank you, I played Stranger's Wrath. It looks... Oddworld Soulstorm, which now has the Sisters of Battle included... looks like a decent enough game. It looks like it's also continuing the story, which is awesome. But what's even more interesting is I was paying careful attention to the actual gameplay. I think it's Lemmings. Hey, someone got the joke. I think it's a Lemmings-style game. Now, I don't know if the older Oddworld games were, but... at several points, you were trying to progress tons and tons of the other guys through an area and yada yada yada. And it's Lemmings. It's freaking Lemmings. I'm not against that, though. I just thought that was interesting. I'm curious how that's going to turn out. Especially since there was a fairly large amount of visual chaos. Apparently the original was like that. You got it. I'll believe you then. So apparently we're going back to that. Got it. Cool. Like I said, the only one I played was Stranger's Wrath, which was not a Lemmings game. At all. Moving on. Ghostwire Tokyo, which is apparently a Persona sequel, where you play in the magical land of Tokyo, where you play. It's an FPS game, and you are a caster, a mage caster, and you rip into people, and it looks pretty generic. Moving on. I don't have anything to say about it. I don't have anything to say about Ghostwire Tokyo. We've actually already seen this game. This is not the first time it's been showcased. I'm sorry. The next two games I have very small amounts of notes on. The next game is Jet the Far Shore. Now, if you'll forgive me, I'd like to read my notes word for word on this game. Huh? Okay, so that's Jet the Far Shore. I know nothing about it. Moving on. The next game after that... Seriously, look it up. You'll see what I mean. It was just... Huh? The next game after that is Godfall, which also looks incredibly generic. Moving on. Now, this is a weird one. Solar Ash is the next game they showcased. Now, this is by the devs behind Hyper Light Drifter, if anybody ever heard of that game. Now, here's the weird thing. This game is actually set within the same world as Hyper Light Drifter. But it's not directly connected. It's just within the same setting. So, okay, I'm kind of with that. It looks, unlike Hyper Light Drifter, which was the top-down kind of pseudo-action thing, it looks far more 3D, far more platformy, and it looks like they're going the Mario Galaxy 1 route with physics, as in, you know, jump from something up here, down to here kind of a thing. Actually looks pretty decent. I'm kind of excited about that, so we'll see. Now, before we talk about the next game, I want to share something. So there's this concept called loyalty. Brand loyalty, franchise loyalty, you know, whatever. I haven't had brand loyalty since the SNES era, but I have had franchise loyalty for most of my life. I still do, actually, which is why I'm bringing this up. Because the Hitman 3 trailer was terrible. Didn't really showcase anything of interest or worth other than a little bit of the Dubai level. But I'm still going to buy that the day it comes out, because Hitman 2 was freaking incredible. That's franchise loyalty right there. Hitman 3, so there's a Dubai level, and it is the end of the trilogy, because they've been doing a story for the last two games and this one. And I was actually kind of digging the story, so I'm curious where they're going to go with it. And I am very, very curious where they're going to go with it. And like I said, I'm totally down. I do have to say one thing, though. Hitman 2 has one of the weirdest purchasing methods I've ever seen. Now, this has been somewhat resolved. But if you go to Steam right now to buy Hitman 2, it'll say free! And you're like... And it's just the tutorial level. The very, very, very first level. The house on the beach level, if you know that one. I forget what it's called. And that's it. So it's basically a demo, which is actually a cool concept, but then you have to buy the other stages individually for like $10 each or something, or $12 or whatever. Now, if you're probably looking at me weird, like, what's the problem here? That's new. That wasn't that way when I bought it for the review we did. We streamed that game. And I just bought the game, and I had the game. Bam. But they apparently have since then, because I was actually recommending the game to PAX, because it's a great game, and I think he'd love it. And he was like, well, how do I buy it? I'm like, what are you talking about? Just buy the game. And he showed me, I was like, oh, this is weird. Now, they have since kind of fixed this because now they have a bundle you can buy, which is just all the stages. And if you buy the bundle, it's $60. So there you go. Sure, whatever. But it's a very strange method of doing it, and it's kind of pushed at least two people that I know personally away from picking up the game. I'm curious if they'll do that with Hitman 3. That being said, I don't mind paying for quality. I never have. And I absolutely think Hitman 2 is quality. Each one of those stages is amazing. And the amount of detail and effort and detail and attention and detail and work in detail that is put into those stages is phenomenal. And the amount of different pathways you can go through that is amazing. In fact, a friend of a friend actually had a great idea, which I will never be able to implement, which sucks. So imagine I'm hanging out and my buddies are here and also here. And so we sit down with one of the stages, right? And so first person goes up to the controller and goes through the stage. Then the next person hits the controller and goes through the stage in whatever method they would. And basically just each person tries a different method, according to whatever it is that their playstyle is or their personality is or whatever they want to try out. Because there are just so many ways through the stages in Hitman 2, you can do that in that game, right? I don't know, it just sounds cool. Thank you very much, and very much appreciate the sub as always. I will put that towards Nier Automata. Yeah, the freedom in the Hitman 2 series or the Hitman 2 game is absolutely mind-bogglingly amazing. So, anywho. Next game, Astro's Playroom. Moving on. Next game, Little Devil Inside. So this likes like a cartoony cross between Dragon's Dogma and Monster Hunter. Except now there's sandboarding penguins. And there's an old man who lives an ordinary life, except he's on our back. So maybe it's an escort game? I have no idea what this game is about. Moving on. Oh, I need a drink for this one. The worst announcement? Well, it's funny you say that, Mr. Red, because the next announcement is NBA 2K21. You ain't ready for this. Moving on. Actually, I do want to pause for a second. I think there's so much potential for sports games that is not even being touched on. It would be niche, or niche, if you prefer. It wouldn't be big, blockbuster, best-selling games, but I really think there's a lot you could do with a basketball game, for example. I also love the fact that some of the Madden series and the football series, I can't remember what it's called. Is it FIFA? I think it is FIFA. Has been kind of drifting into the direction of actually having campaigns and stories and more RPG elements. Like, I'm actually down for that. That sounds cool, And the reason I'm bringing this up is I look at something like NBA 2K21, and first of all, my actual note in my notes is just, that's my note. But I really think that there's something you could do, and instead that's what we get, right? It's like there's potential, but no. I don't know. Failed potential always hits a weird nerve in my head. I don't know. I'm weird. Moving on. Bug Snacks. I'm going to spell that one for you. That's Bug, S-N-A-X. Yeah, Golf Story is a great example of what I'm talking about. By the way, plug for Golf Story. If you're interested in RPGs and golfing, pick up Golf Story. It's a golf RPG, and it's actually quite good. Legit. I picked it up on the Switch, and I did not regret that at all. Anyways, Bug Snacks. So this is by the developers of Octodad. Now, I thought Octodad was enjoyable enough for what it was. In fact, we've actually streamed both Octodad games on camera. This is where we were reviewing them. They're fun, you know, they're enjoyable. But yeah, the game itself looks like... No, RPG, Mr. Red, not JRPG. But yeah, there's alien things, and you become what you eat. And it doesn't look that funny. There were several lines which were clearly designed to be funny, several scenes which were clearly designed to be funny, which weren't. To me, obviously, humor is obviously very subjective. And it just made me go, oh no, come on. Really? Octodad was very funny to me, mostly because of the straightforwardness of the premise. Because you're playing an octopus, and it was a complete non sequitur, because everyone acted like it was completely normal. That was the joke of Octodad, was the fact that everyone had no issues whatsoever with the fact that an octopus was walking around like a person. Ha ha. Right? That was it. That was the joke. It worked. But this time it's like, hey, you are what you eat. Oh no, everything's on fire again? Alright. Okay, whatever. Moving on. So, the next reveal is apparently the big one. And I gotta say apparently. Because it's Demon's Souls. They're doing a re-release of Demon's Souls. And I'm saying re-release because I don't know if this is a remake. I don't know if this is a remaster. I'm not familiar enough with Demon's Souls. I actually never played Demon's Souls. It's one of only 2 Souls games I have not played. They seem to have certainly touched up the graphics, but as we've said many times, graphics alone is not enough to call it a remake. So, we'll see. Really, I am actually legitimately excited about the fact that they're retouching on Demon's Souls, because Demon's Souls has been abandoned and dead. You know, in fact, I don't even think you could play Demon's Souls multiplayer right now, right? Or something like that. I remember hearing about that. Anyways, point being, there's a re-release of Demon's Souls. It's going to be on the PS5. Graphics look neat. No idea what they're doing with it. I actually don't have much else to say about that, so moving on. You know, woo, I'm with it. If nothing else, even if it's just a port with graphic overhaul, sure, I'm down with that. Which is a remaster at that point. Yeah, Bloodborne's the other one I haven't played. Deathloop. So we've actually already seen this one announced, but the announcement video was basically non-existent. It was just, hey, we're making this game. They actually showcased a decent amount of combat of gameplay and presentation of it. Deathloop looks really good. So the engine and overall gameplay style is straight out of Dishonored 2. It's by Arcane, of course. There's even a bit where you use the whoosh and warp yourself up to a thing just like Emily did back in Dishonored 2. The way it works, so you first person, obviously, and you need to kill tons and tons of people. And yeah, you can't stealth. You need to kill. You're trying to get out. The intro story, you have been sentenced to death in perpetuity. And the whole point is that everyone is aware of the actual time loop. And everyone else is just having fun killing you in whatever ways they can. And your goal is to try... See you around next time. And your goal is to get the hell out, you know, to escape. The gameplay itself showed off a lot of specific power usages. And, again, the guns and all that stuff. Near as I can tell, though, and now this is presumption, but it looks like you have basically 1 HP. In other words, if you get hit, you die. But that's okay, because the nature of the game is that you then immediately restart the loop, and you're back into it. It's like, okay, now I'll try something things a little bit differently. Don't quote me on that, but it does look at the very least like you can't really take a hit, which would make sense, since it looks like you can also kill other people in 1 hit as well. Now, all of that actually sounds pretty fun. and I'm kind of into that. Like, that does sound like a cool game. There's one thing at the end where they showcased the woman who is hunting him from her perspective. Now, this could mean a lot of things. This could mean that there's a mode where you play as her, but what I take of that is that's probably going to be a multiplayer thing, where another player can play the one assassin who is hunting you. I don't know what I think of that, if I'm being completely honest. But at the very least, the game does definitely have my attention. I'm actually pretty excited about Deathloop once it comes out on PC. So, the next game showcased is Village. Monsters and horrors and horrible evil things happening in this village out in the woods. Yeah, it's Resident Evil 8. It's Resident Evil 8. Ha ha ha. I did like how they revealed that. I will actually give them that, because it looked like a horror game. And then they revealed that it was Resident Evil 8, and then Chris shows up. That was a good reveal. I'll give them credit on that one. And then Chris immediately wastes bullets shooting someone for some reason. I'm not personally interested, because I'm one of those people who's not really a horror fan. I'm the kind of person who probably wouldn't like Resident Evil 7. I wouldn't know. I haven't played it. But this does look like this is going more in the direction of what Resident Evil 7 was already doing. So, potentially a good thing? I don't know. I've heard a lot of good things about RE7 for people who liked it. So, maybe. I don't know. I've heard a lot of people excited about this. We'll see. So, first of all, thank you very, very much, the Silver Black Eagle. I have actually studied the Great War quite a bit. I wouldn't call myself an expert on any form of history. I will also say that... so right now the list is in lockdown. I know you're new to the stream, so you don't actually know this, but we're not accepting new games to be added to the list, basically. Sorry. So as a consequence of that, I would be totally down for playing Battlefield. I actually want to play that someday, or Valiant Hearts, but the list is in lockdown, so I can't add new games to the list. So if you want to put that towards something else, you absolutely can. Please let me know. Either way, thank you very, very much for your support. Damn it, Loner. And thank you for watching my show. Yeah, I am actually legitimately worried about that too, Savicom. We've had some ideas about that. Glue of Alex gave me a cool idea. I'm thinking about doing that. We'll see. So that's going towards Metal Gear Solid. You got it, Loner. Anyway, so yeah, Resident Evil 8. It's more Resident Evil 7. Well, the idea, Savicom, is... And only the first three... No, I'm joking, I'm joking. Okay, so the next game they showcased is Pragmata. So I'm just gonna I'm not gonna meme, I'm not gonna joke, I'm just gonna explain. So there's a guy in a suit with a young girl who scans an area in a dead city, which causes a partially see-through hologram of a cat to meow at the sky, and then a space station falls through the sky and breaks a hole in the sky, which they get sucked out onto the moon. Some people have heard me utilize the terminology anime as an adjective to refer to weird, or weird for weird's sake. This kind of stuff is what I think of when I think of the word anime. Ocarina and Majora, you got it, Silver Black Eagle. Thank you again. I know that's not literally true, In fact, thanks to people complaining, I tried very hard to shift away from that. But for anybody who was wondering why I used to use, what I was describing when I would use that word back in the day, that is what I was describing. So we've only got 2 things left to talk about. You remember how I said they'd end strong? Well, the last game they showcased was Horizon Zero Dawn 2. I'm just going to open with that. Looks really, really cool, actually. It really does. I loved Horizon Zero Dawn, with a couple of very significant problems with it. There's more underwater stuff, more types of robots. There's story elements that are hinted at, including something that's poisoning the earth, and the fact that Silence is doing his things, and the fact that there's a barbarian horde which has started taming, and there's the building of an organization, and blah blah blah. There's just a lot of really cool stuff there. We'll see where that goes in the future. And it's called Horizon Forbidden West, because calling it Horizon Zero Dawn 2 would just be too difficult. Even though it's a direct sequel. No, and we actually don't do cullings anymore. At all. Unless the person who donated requests it. Yeah, but it's the second game. You could at least call it Horizon 2 Forbidden West. Right? I mean, whatever. I hate game naming. I hate it. It's God of War 4, not God of War. Damn it. Oh, that's true. The 4th game of the series will be called Horizon 2. And the 8th game... There's a 2 in the title? I didn't even see that. I really didn't. But granted, by this point, I was really out of it. I haven't looked it up. Horizon Forbidden West. Okay, come on. Where's the logo? I'm just gonna have to find the frickin'... Is it because they're stupid, Javin? I'm gonna have to find the VOD now, aren't I? Because I don't see it. Oh, never mind. I see it's in the line, isn't it? Yeah, I see it. I see it. God, I did not see that. All right. I'll call it Horizon 2. No, really, I'm gonna start calling it that from now on. I'm hyped. We'll see. I don't even know if I'm buying a PS5 right now, because this brings us to the PS5 itself. So I'm still not sure what I think of the controllers. Because the controllers, I mean, who knows? I can't tell a controller by looking at it. You know how I tell a controller? Until I've got it in my hands, and I've actually used it for a while, I can't really judge a controller. So I don't really have anything to say about the controller. It's a controller. The console itself looks stupid, but I don't actually care. It is, however, gigantic. People have already released information on how large it is estimated. To my knowledge, there's no official dimensions yet. But even with the estimated size, I will have to substantially rearrange my setup here to physically fit it, because it won't fit in my cubbies at all. I will have to put it on top, which means I'm going to have to figure out where the hell my printer is going to go. So the estimated size of this thing, give me a second, because I actually have this here. Give me one sec. And again, I don't actually care all that much about its looks. I mean, I don't give a damn what a console looks like. Why would I? I know people do. Here we go. Give me one sec, guys. I will show you. And sneeze. Okay, there we go. Just gonna do this really quick. So, yeah, there's our Xbox stuff. There's our Sony stuff. So you can kind of see the general size. And you can see it's estimated by standardizing the size of the USB and the disk slot. So you can kind of see the size comparison of this thing compared to the PS3 Fat or the Xbox Sex. Or even the Xbox One X, which is already kind of a large thing. Excuse me. So, yeah, it's going to be a big boy. And, I mean, we don't have official dimensions, Loner. That's the problem. This is something that was estimated by using the USB and the disk drive size as the standard of measurement. That's why those are all red in the picture. Oh yeah, and for the curious, there's the Xbox 360 and the Slim over there. Anywho, which one looks best? I don't care, I don't think. I mean, I hate to say that, but I really don't. I don't care what it looks like. I care how it runs. No, Loner. At least I don't. So, So this is the one with the disk drive. The one I'll be buying, because of course I will. But they're going to be releasing a digital version as well. One that does not actually have a physical disk media drive. You know, one that you'll have to download all the games that you play on it. I don't know what I think about that. Now, I have zero interest in it whatsoever. I will literally never buy that. But, you know, if you want to pick up the digital version, if you don't care about physical copies or having physical medias of your game, or, you know, you prefer having a digital copy of your game, then that's an option. It will presumably be cheaper, which means I can tell you all sorts of facts about the prices of these things. No, I actually do have something to talk about there, but I'll get to that in just a second. We have price figures? Nope. 1 second, I just write something down while I'm here. Because, like, okay. Let's talk about the price. Let's talk about the price. It makes perfect sense that neither the Xbox X or the PS5 have released their prices yet. It really does make perfect sense. Because there's two things happening right now. One is they're playing chicken with each other. Both are waiting for the other to reveal their price first so that they can use that as part of their marketing strategy. And the other thing going on is 2020. It is not exactly an unknown fact that even at a global level, things are a little screwed right now. Yeah, just 2020. So what's happening here is both of them are waiting for the other to flinch so that they can try and lower the price. Because, and I did a little looking into this, legit. Microsoft, in general, specifically in their gaming division, is not doing as well as Sony, specific in the gaming division. Even though Microsoft is doing better overall and Sony is doing worse overall. Now, make of that what you will, but my point being, it's entirely feasible that Sony is more likely to be able to afford to charge less and still make money than Microsoft. So I would bet money that that they haven't actually even decided on the price range, or the specific price yet, excuse me. They probably have a price range. They probably have a, this is how high we'd like it, this is how low we're willing to go, kind of a thing. But I would bet money that neither side has actually decided on a specific price yet. That's exactly what I'm predicting, Hector Anthem. I'm predicting Sony will be selling low in order to win the generation. We'll see who blinks first. I'm actually quite curious going forwards. Oh, and by the way, Silver Black Eagle, I don't know if I said this out loud, but I did get that you wanted to put that towards Ocarina Majora, and I did write that down. So I just wanted to make sure you knew about that, assuming you're even there. So we have no idea how much these consoles are going to cost. And as I've said before, Nintendo isn't actually part of the console war anymore. They haven't been for a bit now. They have deliberately and willingly bowed out of the console war to do their own thing, and frankly, I think that was the right move. The Switch isn't a competitor to the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox X, and it shouldn't be. It's the Switch. It's over there. You know what the competitor is to the PS5 and the Xbox X? The PC. We have been at the point for years now where consoles are PCs. We're there. We have been there. So, we're already at that point where they have entered that particular market, for lack of a better way to put it. And I think this is one of the biggest reasons why we see the wildly divergent strategies. Microsoft has been pushing you can get your games on us and the PC, and Sony has been pushing really hard for you can get your games on us. History is going to show which one of those strategies wins, because I can't predict that. I don't have future knowledge powers. I mean, of course it's not 100% true, Javin. I mean, if you want to nitpick, dude. But I've said it before and I've said it again. That I'm actually down with the idea of what the Xbox is. I'm just not sure I'm down with what the PlayStation is at this point in time. So we'll see. We will see what they've got going forwards. We will see what comes out, and we will see how good it is. Because, as always, I don't actually give a damn about the console. I give a damn about its library. So we will see. And so far, its library, to me, looks like Horizon Forbidden West, which will eventually come out on PC. Hitman 3, which will come out on PC. Ratchet and Clank. Gran Turismo 7, maybe. And the Miles Morales Spider-Man game. And I am down for all of those. So, we'll see. That is it. That's all my news. I stayed up until 2 in the morning last night watching all this stuff, so I hope that it was worth it. 3 freaking conferences. And I got like 3 more this week, too. So, yay. No, Chocolate Rob. Not that I'm aware of. No, I'm not going to get some sleep. I got a lot of work to get done today. But the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to chop off the local recording.